Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com and follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. And of course, on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and check off the notification bell for our weekly videos. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this is made possible by our sponsors, OWC. For more information, you can check them out at owcdigital.com. This week, I'm joined by editor Mark Hartzell, whose work includes Lost in Space, Nosferatu, Agent Carter, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Now, just before we got on here, we were chatting about going out for interviews and trying to get your start, or going out for interviews and not getting a role that you're excited about. How do you, as an editor, because that's something a lot of young editors need to learn about, is you're not going to get everything. How do you deal with that sense of rejection and,
So you're going to have all the feelings, you're going to go through the rejection and you'll think to yourself, well, if I don't get that, my career is over. And, there's an expression like, if a door closes, usually a window opens, and I'll be like, it's a window for you to jump out of. But what I've discovered is sometimes what you thought you wanted, you didn't. That's definitely a thing. And other times, just keep swimming, just keep moving forward, because you will have other opportunities, and those other opportunities will lead you places that you didn't even know were going to be possible. Mm-hmm. So if I had zigged instead of zagging, or not gotten the one show that I was like a little, about, I wouldn't have gotten something later that was like, oh, I love that. That was a great experience. I had this wonderful time. You don't know. And every year you can think, but you don't. That's sort of, what I tell people at the beginning of their careers is, you don't even know what you don't know yet. Like it takes some time, and just say yes and no sometimes, and just keep trying. So
is there a particular genre you're wanting to get into?
I've been enjoying working on things that have a lot of visual effects on them, like Lost in Space. So I'm still sort of like, oh, I love working in VFX. In the meantime, I've done one dramedy. I want to say it's a dramedy. One of my early editor credits was on a show called Bunheads, mm-hmm. With showrunner Amy Sherman Palladino, who's amazing. And I had a great time on it. And speaking of interviews, like that was one of my first, literally after True Blood, where I got promoted. It was my first interview for a job. And, my agent was doing a lot of like coach. Was like, okay, just go in there, be yourself. They're meeting with people all week. You're not going to hear about it, for a while, but just go with it. And I was like, okay. I mean, I just try to go up, bathe, present well, show up, smile, do the thing. And I took a meeting with Amy Sherman Palladino and her associate producer, I think Helen Pye, the lovely, and had a really nice half-hour chat, and left and was like, well, that seemed to go well. I guess I'll find something. And then 5 minutes later, my agent calls and is like, what did you do? And I'm like, what did I do? He's like, they just canceled the rest of their weekly meetings. They want to offer you the job. And I was like, what? And I got the job.
Wow.
And that's I think it's a drama. I'm going to call it a dramedy. It's more comedic than, no, it's a dramedy. Subsequent to that, I've always been like, I would love to do like a half-hour dramedy. There's a lot of things we're calling comedies these days that aren't. Yeah. Like a Dead to Me, or a Better Things. And I'm like, this isn't a comedy, this isn't a drama, but is it? But they are always, oh, it's a comedy, it's a dramedy. But I only have this one Bunheads credit. Let me unslack myself. And that's one area where I have not been able to get a foothold. I did have a meeting. I was supposed to say on what. And they were like, it was a good meeting, but they wanted somebody with more comedy experience. And I'm like, of course they did. Because I don't know if I can edit comedy, except that I've done it with my one dramedy and it went well. I'm pretty sure I can do it, but that you tend to get vaguely pigeonholed into what you've done unless you really try and push your way out. And I'm going to keep trying in the future to still be like, maybe somebody will give me a half-hour dramedy to try out.
Now you mentioned you had an agent. Now, how did you go about getting that? Because like you said, you went from assistant at True Blood to editing at True Blood. So how did you get your agent?
So I had been assisting for 10 years. So half my career, slightly more than that, so it was 22 years now. And had done some co-editing and then got to solo edit some episodes of True Blood. And my mentor on True Blood was Michael Ruscio, ACE. Mm-hmm. Amazing person, amazing editor. And he was like, yeah, you're nailing it. I'm like, I was like, can I take a meeting with your agent? Is it be weird if I asked to be like, because I would like his career. Like I would like, because his career is like Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, True Blood, Dexter, Homeland, what is it right now? Raised by Wolves. Like, okay, like some small things you've never heard of. And he was like, well, let me ask if they're looking, if they'll take a meeting on someone who's, doesn't have a lot of experience. I'm like, great. And I took a meeting with, they have a team of innovative artists. And I took a meeting with them and they were like, yeah, like, we'll take a chance on you. Mm-hmm. And it didn't even occur to me to cross shop. And I'm happy I didn't, because I've had a really good experience with them, because it's not like they just get you all the work. It's a partnership, and you still have to be out there kind of hustling and looking, and keep your ear to the ground, ear to the railroad track, ear to the wall, because the best time to get a date, if you walk into the bar alone, everybody's going to be like, desperate, single, who cares? Walk into the door with a pretty person on your arm and everybody's like, who's that? What's going on there? So, the best time to get work is when you're working. Mm-hmm. This is like the terrible psychology of human beings. It's like the farmer's market. If you have the box of carrots and everybody takes the carrots, and if you have the one carrot left over, people are gonna be like, something's wrong with that one carrot. Yeah. No, it's a carrot. But you want it to be part of, it needs to look better and be presented a certain way. So I always tell people, like, don't wait until your job's over to, get out there and look for work. It's like, the day to start thinking about your next job is probably when you start your current job, which is crazy.
I appreciate your analogies there. I think, now, so, when you're looking for a job, what are you looking for from an editorial perspective?
God, I'm going to say this one to you guys. So part of me in recent years was like, I want to collect I want to credit on every good streaming service there is. Mm-hmm. I want to collect streaming services like Infinity Stones, so I can put them into my gauntlet. And I was like, I want to do an Apple show and an Amazon show. And now I'm like, well, yes, I still want that secretly for some terrible infantile reason. But what you're actually looking for is either, or both, either something you are interested in, mm-hmm. or feel passionate about, or people who you are, I really like that person, or I find that person's talent unimaginably interesting or challenging or fascinating. So you're trying to steer yourself towards, I am trying to steer myself towards, I loved that, or, that's really interesting, or, they're really talented, or I wonder what it'd be like to work with them. Mm-hmm. So those are sort of my criteria. Although sometimes there's going to be surprises and you'll just be like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know who that is. And that could lead to something amazing too. You don't know.
Now, you talked about VFX earlier and being something you're doing a lot of right now. One of the challenges in VFX is that you don't have everything in front of you while you're trying to build the scene. So how do you tackle a scene when you're in that situation?
There's a couple different ways. It depends on the resources of the show. The old-fashioned way is text cards, title tool. So literally you just put on your imagination thinking cap and you just type into a card of what you want to see and you pop it in there and be like, I think this is what we're going to do here. Or you tell the story with take your in an Avid, take your title and hit the 3D button and then animate the title and be like, a fish swims by and the word fish will just sort of do this. And I'll be like, did you see the fish? This is the word fish and did that. Theater of the mind, where you can be like, oh, I guess I saw that. If the show has the resources and the talent, you might have someone in-house. We had like an amazing in-house pre and post-visuals artist on Lost in Space called, his name is Dirk Valk. And, they would be pre-vising and storyboarding and coming up with digital coverage for things early on, but they were open to the editors. I could just go like, hey, can I get a shot or a couple shots of this? Or can I put a virtual camera on this and try a couple of things from this or this and that? And they'd be like, okay. And they would literally go make footage for us. And that was like, that's a treat. That is like, that is better than the fish.
Well, you're a step away from an animation editor at that point where you're like, give me that shot.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we'll go do that.
I guess so. I hadn't thought about that way because I've always been sort of like animation. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe. Animation seems like a lot of work. So it seems like so hard and so many revisions and so much stuff. But I think, all storytelling is difficult and easy and difficult, because if it were super easy, we wouldn't be spending so much time just being like, oh yeah, you just do it.
Yeah, and we'd all be Spielbergs.
Yeah. So nobody sets out to make a bad TV show or a bad movie.
Yeah, exactly.
One or two people, but
yeah, but then they usually stand out. Like there's, like it's obvious that they're trying.
Become really good. They become like, The Room.
Yeah. Do you think that one was actually on purpose? The Room?
No.
Yeah.
No.
There's too many things that are just natural.
There's too many. Yeah. So yeah, those are sort of the ways you sort of have to make sure that you can try to take whoever's watching your early edits. You make sure you're taking them along for the journey and they kind of understand what you have in mind. Or, I've stolen shots from other properties. I've been like, can we rip some stuff from YouTube and get a shot of this from this movie and that from that movie and just sort of put it in to be like, I need something I need it to feel like this. Mm-hmm. And then you'll do your new version of that, which can also be a way of, helping people understand what you've had in mind.
Now, is there a scene or a moment in that you've worked on in your career that you're most proud of?
Oh God, there's a couple. I'm trying to think which one I want to talk about. There's like 1, 2, 3. There's one I use for sort of teaching purposes. When I talk to ACE interns or ACE intern applicants, and they're like, what have you been doing? Talk to us about your work. I'll be like, hey, here's some of the stuff I've done that was out of the box. And one of them was on the show. It's a show that's on Peacock, North America, at least in America right now, and possibly in Canada, called Sacred Lies. It's a half-hour drama. I did 10 episodes, and in the finale, there was a scene that came in. I'm gonna try to say this as discreetly as I can. The scene came in, and my assistant was like, "Uh-oh," and I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "You need to see these dailies. This is not something it's interesting." And I'm like, okay, I watched it and I was like, ooh, like this is not, I had pictured this different in my mind. And it turns out that the showrunner may have pictured it different in their mind and the director may have pictured it different in their mind. And it was going to be a little too on the nose, a little too big. And it wasn't going to have, it was supposed to be a callback to something earlier in the season that had a certain degree of magic. and a certain degree of mystery and fantasy. Being like, if I told you that you were going to be in the woods at night and a mist was going to come in, and through the mist you're going to see something, you'll be like, oh wow. And if I was like, it's a Tuesday morning, it's brightly lit, you're standing on a street corner and you're going to see something, those are two different things. And one, you will believe that at night with the mist in the forest that you are seeing something fantastic. But on a Tuesday on a street corner, and I'm like, look at that over there, you'd be like, okay, there's not the right environment to believe this as a fantastical moment. And I looked at the dailies that my assistant had been like, uh-oh. And I watched them and I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, I don't even want to cut this because I know what it's going to be. And I was like, I'll cut this last. And so then I waited till I cut the rest of the show, and then I cut the scene. And it was ultimately pretty much what I thought it was going to be. And I was like, whoa. And it put me in sort of a funk. And I went home and had dinner with my, I have a Emmy award-winning editor husband named Aaron Butler. So put him in here. And he was like talking to me and he's like, what is going on? You're not even here. And I'm like, I have to figure out I can't just present this scene. I have to figure out some way to make this, to take you're seeing something on a street corner at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday in full bright light and make it feel like, the magic, make it feel like this could or couldn't be happening, but we are in the moment. And all of a sudden I was like, that's the answer. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm going to mix those two moments together because they are related. It's meant to be a callback. Mm-hmm. And so, and this is, there are times I've heard editors be like, always first present to them what they scripted. If they scripted it, that's what they want. Make sure you give them what they scripted the first time they see it. And then you can go, I have an idea. And I tend to not do that. I tend to, if I have time and resources, be like, and then I will actually present sometimes, not always. I'll be like, let me just try something unexpected here from the get-go. And so I went back 6 episodes and intercut these 2 scenes that were not meant to be cut together, and presented it the way to the director. And the director was like, this is amazing. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, how's the showrunner going to feel? I'm like, I'm going to let her know the idea. And I told her, I'm like, hey, I wanted to try something. Here was my idea. And she's like, I don't see how that's possible. And I'm like, okay. And it's how the show eventually aired. So if you spend 5 total hours watching the first season of Sacred Lies, you will know what it is I'm talking about without being super specific right now. But I'm very proud of that because it's a show that most people haven't seen, but it's something I kind of pulled out of the ether and was like, hey, how about this? It was a big fix, a big solve. Mm-hmm. And I'll show the original scene to someone because I have it. And then I'll show them the final and be like, this is how, you got from here to there. And that's something, sometimes as an editor, you're doing that. You're actually taking big leaps. So yeah, that's one of I think there's a couple other scenes that I'm always like, that's the one. So
well, it's interesting because a lot of the editors I talk with they all say sort of like a scene that was troubled.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the challenge. That's where it gets exciting. Right. If it goes together easy, you're like, all right, that's done.
Yeah.
And I do have to point out, you got Peacock on your gauntlet.
Yeah, I got the Peacock. A lot of things have moved around. Like Marvel's Agent Carter is now on Disney Plus. I'm on D Plus. And I got my show on Peacock. So I'm working on it. And I think Animal Kingdom is on Amazon.
The only one that will be trouble for you to get on is Quibi because it no longer exists.
Longer on there. And I think I was actually out for a Quibi show once. But no, I'm still working on my Apple TV Plus credit. We'll see if I get there.
Yeah.
But no, I do actually have shows on multiple platforms now. So that is fun to think about.
Yeah. When you get your rushes in, how do you like to approach your first cut?
That's interesting. I like to watch my way through the dailies. Mm-hmm. I like to if there's circle takes, a lot of directors will be up. I was told on one show, like, only use the circle takes. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch them all. And then one of the circle takes, literally like the camera seemed to fall off. And I was like, this can't be the one to use. But I'd heard people got fired for not using just the circle takes. And I was like, I'm just
did you put it in and like, here
no,
you go.
I was like, here, I'm just gonna do my thing. And everything was great. I don't know. Different people have different experiences on different things. It's like when you have two friends who go on a date and you go, how was the date? And one of them goes like, oh my God, this was the best date I ever had. And the other person goes, I couldn't wait to get out of there. It was the worst date I've ever had. Yeah. People will have those experiences professionally too. So wait, I totally just got distracted. What was I saying? So I will tend to watch the early, I'll focus a little bit on the early takes and be like, where did they start? And then I'll sort of refocus my attention on where they wound up and see what adjustments to performance and the values were made during the shoot of that scene, to see what camera and blocking changes happened, if any. And depending on the scene, sometimes I will work in a linear fashion, as if I was laying down to tape and be like, first shot, second shot, third shot. We'll just keep it going that way. Other times I'll be watching through the dailies and I'll be like, oh, that moment, that look, that line read, that camera move, that's what I want. And start there and start reverse engineering that into something. So it could be both ways. It could be like, sometimes you come into your empty space and you just put a sofa over there and put a light over there. And other times you're like, nope, the entire room is going to be based on, everything has to hinge on this one piece of art or this one moment. And sometimes I'll try to be like, that's the most important moment. And that's the one that spoke to me, or I thought was really interesting, or I know based on the story, that is the pivotal moment. Let's find out how to serve that moment or that emotion and to build it backwards from there.
Interesting. Now, we've been stuck in this pandemic for a year and a half now. Is there something you've discovered on the streaming services that people should check out?
Comedies. Watching comedies or rewatching comedies. And for me, it was sort of rewatching comedies. I did a rewatch of Parks and Rec. I did a rewatch of Schitt's Creek leading to the final season, and watched a lot of old Golden Girls episodes, which I believe now are also going to be on Disney Plus in some countries, and eventually all of them maybe, which is weird. It's certain. I was reminded that some shows are amazing and some movies are amazing because of the stories are amazing. And you're like, this is such good storytelling, or this is this, the other. But sometimes it's about spending time with those characters, regardless of the story. Because some of the stories you'll be like, I know what's coming. But you'll find yourself rewatching things sometimes because you want to spend time with these characters, because they share experiences with you and you have certain emotions tied to them. And I found that really helpful during the lockdown. And I think a lot of people are now. Like I talk to so many really like younger people who are half my age, and they've watched Friends 3 times, not just once. They keep watching Friends. Friends, was the #1 show on Netflix. Paid was it $100 million for one extra season of Friends that one year. They kept it one more, because it was the #1 show on Netflix. Yeah, because everybody is still watching Friends. And everybody is still watching Seinfeld, and that's not going to change at any point. People are also watching The Sopranos. But I'm going to say, like, in times of strife, I imagine you're going to be like, oh, I want to go watch Tony Soprano. No. You're going to be like, I'm going to go watch Ross and Rachel, and people will watch comedy. So I think I leaned into comedy a lot. So I didn't discover anything amazing. I did. I late to the ball game on Penn 1-5, but it's like,
it's a great show.
Brilliant.
I can't imagine pitching that. Like, we're 36-year-old women. We're going to pretend we're teenagers. And
green light, go. Yeah. Just do it. It's brilliant. I really, really have been enjoying that too. But yeah, comedy has been sort of the antidote to the lockdown.
Have you seen Ted Lasso?
Yes. Oh, well, that is the show of the moment. Like that is the show for the current times. And the second season is supposed to be great. I think it came out yesterday.
Today.
Oh, today. So yeah, I need to make some time for that too.
I have one last question for you because we were talking about Showgirls before we got on here.
Of course.
What is your favorite So Bad It's Good film?
It's going to be Showgirls for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
What is it about Showgirls?
Literally, it's a well-made film.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Verhoeven's made some amazing movies, like RoboCop and the original Total Recall are great films. And if you were to watch Showgirls with the sound off and just follow the camera work or the editing, but primarily the camera and the blocking of people in spaces, there are some Goodfellas worthy oneers in there where you are moving through space and actors are coming and going, and it's a choreographed ballet of storytelling. And it's sort of amazing, but the more you dig into it, the better it gets and the funnier it gets. It gets funnier and funnier and funnier. And I think I'm not the only person. I think there's a writer from what was the LA Weekly of Seattle who did like a one-man show where he would talk his way through the film, and people would pay money to go see him talk his way through the film. And I think you can find that on the Blu-ray commentary. You can like listen to him give you his feeling. But it's one of those things where the more you watch it, the more incredibly good it gets, even though it's deeply troubled.
I wonder if they've recruited, because it had lost its money in its initial release, but it's become such a cult classic. I wonder if they're going to recoup their initial budget.
I think they have. There's no way that they haven't been like, well, this has gone on to have a very long and fruitful life.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview.
Thank you, Gordon. This is great.
So that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check out filmmakeru.com for our latest courses and follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I want to thank our guests and, of course, our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking needs. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you.